had a brother tell me via Facebook. I said he invited me to like a party, Christian party, worship. I don't know. They'd been out, him and his wife, for 3 months on the road in ministry. You know, it was odd, but they had been across the United States, and they had come back home, and they were wanting to have a party, and they invited everybody, open invitation, to come and, you know, get together and have a Christian gathering. So, you know, he's a very demanding kind of person, and he was saying, you know, who's coming? Who's coming? He wanted to know. Well, sure. So, you know, I tried to write back by email and tell him why I couldn't come, but unfortunately he had some kind of screening on his email, and I couldn't get through without going through some extra hoops that I didn't want to go through for security reasons, OPSEC. So I didn't do anything, and then I just, you know, on Facebook, he was like, well, who's coming? Who's not coming? And so I said, I won't be able to come. I'm caught up in being part of a team that's caring for my roommate who's detoxing from a decade opiate addiction, and of course in work and stuff. And so he retorted back that I should not neglect being with other Christians because that would lead me to maturity. And that hit me wrong. It just hit me wrong. Being around other Christians doesn't necessarily bring you to maturity. One, doing things like, number one, I know that God is working in my heart and in my life, and he did say as God leads, so I'm not slamming the brother. I'm just saying that these words that he spoke hit me adversely. I know God's moving in my life. You know how I know God's moving in my life? You know how I know God's maturing me in my life? Because I'm taking on things I don't necessarily want to take on. And in the process, he is with me. I don't know any other way to describe that there's maturity going on than that. You're willing to take on more responsibility, and in the process, God is with you. Isn't that what maturity is all about? It's not about getting together with people. What if I got together with a bunch of people who were just immature? Is that going to mature me up? No. That's just going to get me together with more immature people. And what does that do? That just creates play. That's just playing. That's playing. I don't want to play. And so that statement in and of itself is invalid. You see, I feel an increasing, and even though I come to places of understanding in this, I still am swimming against this tide of this mentality that I have to be around other believers in a fellowship, accountability kind of way. And, you know, there is a part of me that agrees with that. I recognize that. I understand that. But if God doesn't open those doors, folks, you can't create them. I'm not gonna bathe in acid. I'm not gonna wash myself off in dirty, nasty water. I mean, it's not for me, you know. It's just not. If I can't make these doors where there are no doors, and that's the case, they're man-made doors, and they aren't. I'm not supposed to walk through them. I go to churches I look, I don't find. It's just the way it is. And meanwhile, I continue to mature. You know, you don't stop as an adult. You don't stop living because you don't have a job. You continue to live. You go work. You find work. You know, and I've tried to find churches. I don't find churches, but I don't stop growing because of that. I continue to grow. I stay attached to the head. So anyway, this is going on in my head. This is going on in my head after I read this. And I start reading where I left off. I'm doing a study in Old Testament and New Testament, and I say a study. It's just as God leads, and kind of a read through. But and I read about, I'm at that part in Luke where they go to find the body of Jesus in the tomb, and the body's not there. And the women go back and they tell the men, and the men are like, "What? You totally confused us, you know? What's going on?" And then there's these two men, these two believers that are walking down this road, and this man comes upon him, Jesus comes upon him, and he starts, he's like, "What's going on, fellas? You know, what are you talking about?" And they start telling him about Jesus and what happened and how they thought he was the Messiah. They were looking for a natural Messiah still at this point, and you know, all this stuff happened, and so they got to the end of where they were going to separate. Jesus acted like he was going to go on, and they said, "Hey, you know, why don't you come back and have some dinner with us?" And he's like, "Okay." So he went back, and they're all eating, and they're sitting down to eat, and Jesus takes the bread, and he breaks the bread, and they recognize him. That's Jesus. Up to this point, they had not recognized him at all. They didn't know who he was. But then they said afterwards, he just disappeared, and afterwards they said, "Didn't our hearts burn inside of us?" You know, because he opened the scriptures to them. He revealed who Jesus was to them in the scriptures, and then they saw him when he broke the bread. I don't know if it triggered the memory of when he broke the bread at the Passover meal that they had, or if they simply had all come together in a revelation and they went, that was the Lord. I mean, but what struck me particularly was that they went looking for the body of the Lord in a tomb where it was supposed to be, and it wasn't there. It just wasn't there. They were looking for the body of the Lord where it was supposed to be, and it just wasn't there. These are people that were looking for a natural manifestation of the Messiah. He was placed in a tomb by men, and when his disciples, his followers, his believers went looking for the body, it just wasn't there. Threw them into total confusion. And then, when the Lord, the body of Christ, was right there in front of them, talking to them, they didn't recognize it. Folks, there's got to be something there that we see that says that we can't recognize the body of Christ sometimes, because we go looking for it in the tomb. And even then, when it's not there, we don't know where it is. We have to know that the body of the Lord is when that fire burns inside of us and it discloses Jesus to us. It exposes the head to us. That's how we recognize the body. It's not that it looks like it's supposed to look. It probably isn't going to look like it's supposed to look. The Messiah did not look like he was supposed to look. The body was not where it was supposed to be, you see. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying there has to be something more to the body than just a bunch of professed believers gathering together, rising up to play.